Discuss the difference between resource loading and resource leveling and provide an example when you would use each technique. Resource loading. It mainly deals with manpower. Resource loading helps you to see what people are scheduled to work on project and when they are scheduled to work. So, what people are scheduled to work on projects and what are scheduled to work. Resource leveling deals with both time and resources, including manpower and budget. As the name suggests, leveling, it tries to balance the conflict of project with the available resources. It also helps you to smooth out resource allocation and reduce scheduling conflicts. For example, both of these techniques we can use in human resource department. It will make it easier to manage. That's an example that somebody gave. Let's look on an alternative definition. Resource leveling can also be applied. It applies the resource constraint to the project and may result in the change of project direction. Resource leveling is primarily driven by resource constraints like why you do not have more than 45 hours of a given resource for a week. The allocation limits identified in resource leveling must be applied. The resource leveling is done first and then we do resource smoothing. First, we need to allocate the resource constraint before we can optimize it. Resource smoothing. When we apply resource smoothing after doing resource leveling, we make use of slack and will not result in change of project direction. Resource smoothing is more to do with desired limits, like we have 45 hours available for a given resource, but we wish we allocate 38 hours per week so that we have some breathing space. The desired limit identified in resource smoothing may not be applied in some cases if we don't have a slack. We apply resource smoothing after applying resource leveling. For example, to manage human resource, both techniques are required. Let's look at some of the more explanation to look at what is resource loading and resource leveling. Resource loading and resource leveling are both important concerns when analyzing a project's resource utilization and its impact. Resources, like any other project constraint, are often limited, and the amount of resource demand during each time of project fall under the resource loading. A clear picture of what tasks or parts of project will require high load amount of resources is tremendously important for developing and managing project plan. An example of resource loading can be seen when considering a large software development project. In an examination of project work demand, it becomes clear that 3 months of software development will place external workload on current programmers. Example, 50 plus hours per week over allocated. This understanding of the project resources loading suggests that hiring an additional contract programmer during month would be necessary in order to adhere the project schedule. With this example, one can draw an analogy to period by period cost scheduling variation within project, which might also be considered resource loading as well. Resource loading. Estimation of the cost and quantity of resource is very essential at the time of making a budget for the project. Resource loading is basically allocating resources to the activities at the right time. Project manager, with the help of resource loading, can calculate the employee working hours and do allocation of various tasks. Based upon these calculations, the project manager can also predict if needed to apply any employees to the project team for the completion of the project. Resource leveling. Resource leveling deals with time and project resources, which includes project budget and manpower. It balances the need of the project with respect to available resources at every stage of the project. Time and available resources are the two main components of the resource leveling. Projects with higher priorities will be completed first with the available resources. In technical words, we can say that tasks on critical paths are completed first with the available resources. Let's look at some of the other definitions. Resource loading refers to amount of individual resources that exist in scheduling requirement during specific periods of time. Resource loading mainly involves organization, manpower, or employees. In resource loading, each employee is assigned a task as a percent of project, usually is 25%. That the employee is assigned other task when he is 100% work. This would mean that the employees cannot take on any additional work. Resource loading helps the project manager understand the demand for project on organizing resource on individual people's schedule. Project manager often use histogram to depict a period by period variation. For example, with resource loading, project manager staffing hours for here helping in how tasks can be assigned. Then you have resource leveling. Resource leveling is used for resolving conflicts by delaying tasks in a form of network analyzing with resource management concerns drive scheduling decision and resources including manpower and budget. The main purpose of resource leveling is to create smoother distribution of resource usage. For example, you can sometimes remove overallocation by delaying non-critical tasks which is not essential in an overlay schedule day. At other times, you will need to delay projects completely later or to remove overallocation.